I woke up this morning thinking to myself, man, I'd really like to cover something unique, something different, something we don't get a chance to see all too often. And lo and behold, waiting right there for me in the official Brightworks Discord channel, link of course down below in the description, there was this lovely replay. Today, what we've got for you is a 5 versus 5 on Industrial Revolution version 2.0. This is a really fun map. It's got these really cool pipeline segmented bits that go all the way up and over around on the top. They're kind of a cool architecture to those. They've got this interesting layout to the map. There's a lot of fun lanes. Let's get right into it. Spawning on the eastern side, representing the blue team, it's Shigaslay. It's our blue team leader, dressed up in Cortex here and going for a vehicle lab right off the start. Now that's a bit interesting because he does have this massive pond that is going to be a little bit of an issue here if he doesn't transition into something a little bit more amphibious. But I suppose there is that amphibious constructor. We could always go for amphibious tanks. Cortex has some really powerful amphibious tanks, so I wouldn't mind seeing that whatsoever. Yeah, we've got some all-around interesting action to see down there. All the way across the map, the complete opposite side, both laterally and horizontally, we have Servitor, our red team leader, dressed up in Armada. We have a little bit of a mix-up of the colors, but that's all right. Servitor here, going for the Armada bot lab right off the gate, getting a res bot out, interestingly enough. I don't believe there's anything to resurrect or any reclaim here, like any metal or anything lying around, but still the res bot is very nice to have around. You can eat up your lab, eat up your commander if you sacrifice it, or just send it to the front line and start reclaiming. You're going to make tons and tons of metal, and that's going to be all well and good. Now this map, right? Let's take a look at this map. If I switch into full-on overhead view, you can see that there's a couple of lanes to this map. One of the lanes is right on the back here, and it looks like Servitor is going to be going up against Cobram 19, who are both going to be contesting this back lane right here. There's a couple of interesting ways to get into this lane. You can use these paths right here, both of which go up into this area like so. There's also little pathways to go up here and also over here. And then there's these little high grounds right here. If I rotate the camera, you can see there's a little high ground here. There's a little high ground over here. There's a high ground over here that are also all kind of nearby that lane. So there's a lot of really interesting ways to pressure and push back on that lane. It's a really interesting place to contest. Definitely one that we usually see 8 versus 8s on. And so seeing this in a... seeing this in such a spectacle where it's just going to be 5 versus 5, it means that there's going to be a lot of open lanes. Already a little bit of aggression here as Ninjas does manage to sneak a rover across the map, taking out a metal extractor, shutting down some wind turbines. Very nicely done. Very, very good early aggression there coming out of Ninjas. He's going to go for another metal extractor. That's very nice. Already getting value out of that single rover. There's a whole swarm of rascals already looking to get some damage done across the map here. They're thinking about going in on Servitor's base. In the middle of the map, it's just a straight up brawl. You've got a nice big flat open space right here in the middle of the map, so I'm not surprised to see that both Ninjas and Rei Ayanami are both going for vehicles. That's a great choice here because those vehicles can be very, very powerful. Now this high ground is not to be understated. If you put a gauntlet or a agitator up here on this high ground, you can definitely get a really, really decent trade just having it shell away down onto the low ground here, just like that. Another important thing to remember is that there's these little metal extractor points up here on top of these little spots here. And if you can claim those with a transporter and a constructor, you can actually get a decent little bit of economy pumped out pretty quickly. So that's another thing that I would love to see these players go for here. Blue player, yeah, I don't even know where to begin. Blue player will just indeed be going for those amphibious tanks here to try and assert control. Very risky because up against him is going to be not one but 2 players, both of which have gone for... oh no, sorry. Admiral Rushin did go for a vehicle lab. I thought he went for a hovercraft lab. Only McCaslin has gone for a hovercraft lab, but it does mean that they're going to have a phenomenal time getting units across this little pond and over to the other side of the map, trying to do a little bit of damage. Blitz here trying to take down a metal extractor. It will get it. That's quite nice. The longer that metal extractor stays down, the better the value here. For the time being, it's going to be built right away. So we're going to need a little bit more damage to justify losing this blitz. That is 109 metal. 2 metal extractors, I'd probably say it's worth it, but just 1 down for a couple of seconds, probably not ideal. Either way, though, it does force the army to fall back a little bit off the front line, as Smidge is gonna have to reorient his troops here. Ray and Ninja is doing a much more slow push here. They're making sure to fortify. You can see the light laser turrets coming up here, trying to make sure that everything is locked down before they do any more aggression. Now, Adumas is doing a great job of pushing up and controlling this high ground. This is, again, a really critical spot to control on this map. You need to make sure that somebody is always vying for control up here, both on the low high ground, right here, as weird as that sounds to say, the medium high ground, which is up here. Let me remove these marks so it's a little clearer what I'm highlighting. This medium high ground here, and then the high ground up here as well. This is mostly just economic, this little spot, but this place is really, really helpful for controlling. You put a radar down, you have almost perfect vision of whatever the enemy is doing on both sides here. You put a, some sort of gauntlet down or something long range like that, even just shell shockers or anything, artillery pieces. Yeah, you're gonna be in a really good position. Some Pounder's getting an excellent trade against a whole bunch of these pawns here. That was about 10 pawns, all going down to 1 or 2 Pounders. Dapump, DapPMK, is it DapPMK or is it Dapmonk? We'll go with Dapmonk. It kind of reminds me of what are those electronic artists? I forget their names. Daft Punk. That's what I'm thinking of. Kind of reminds me of them, but just in a slightly different arrangement here. So interestingly, the southern side is going to be a 2 versus 1. So blue player is going to have quite a bit of a hard time dealing with that. Definitely not to be underestimated down here. This area can give quite a lot of resources, but it also is a very, very open section, and so you're going to need some way to control this almost immediately. Otherwise, you're leaving yourself open on multiple sides. And this is quite a nice push from Cobram, who has pushed all the way far forward with a bunch of these pawns, has denied Servitor the expansion over here, has also claimed all the metal extractors, which is super, super important, and because of this, now has a direct all-access path down this ramp right here. Both of these ramps, I should say, in order to get a little bit of run-by going. Excellent D-guns right there, though, catching a whole bunch of those pawns. The pawns decide they're not interested in that commander. They'd rather take the much worse fight with the Pounder here, and so they will be completely obliterated by a single Pounder. Well, yikes. Really think that would have been a whole lot better if they had just decided to settle for the commander and get that kill. Probably could have done it relatively quickly here. Instead, Orange will assert control over this, the middle of this low high ground there, and nobody really has control over the medium high ground or the high ground. Odd terminology, but I think you figure out, or well, you can piece together what I'm saying here. Camera angles are a bit difficult on this map. There's always pipes and whatnot in the way. I wonder if there's a way for me to toggle those. Guess not. Just gonna have to look around them, kind of zoom in past them and all that sort of stuff. There we go. The perfect camera height right there. Januses plus missile trucks are pretty good. Missile trucks give you the vision that you need to know if it's safe to push in with the Januses, and then of course you just dip the Januses in real quickly, and yeah, they pop whatever is in their way. In this case, it's going to be a constructor that's really annoying that we're taking that off the front line. It's a very, very nice pick here for ninjas. Because yeah, those constructors on the front line are going to be able to put up any of those advanced T1 structures. The agitator, one of the many, but yeah, also heavy laser towers, basically anything else like that. Loads of ticks being pumped out right now from Adumas. You might just have this lab on idle. He's got a couple of idle constructors. I'd love to see these maybe trying to find a way to get around the map and build some of these metal extractors. There's one over here, there's one over here, 2 up here, and another one all the way over here. You can just start putting static defense along this line and then start putting it along this line. And then, yeah, you can start building up on this front right here, and you're going to be in a really good spot. I'd love to see Adumas maybe think about getting started on that. Light laser towers are going to start whittling away at this Pounder here. Well, they do get it before it manages to take one of them down. That's quite nice. It's going to be a solid hold there, at least for a little while. A bunch of ticks have actually managed to run by. All right, interesting. Now, there is some light laser towers here. Nicely done. Those are going to shut down a lot of this tick aggression. They'll kill 1 metal extractor, but is that really worth it? I'm not sure. 2 metal extractors, I guess. I mean, yeah, a couple hundred metal of ticks, not the end of the world, but certainly, you want to get as much value out as possible. Huge bombing run from Admiral Rushin, who was all the way in the bottom left-hand side of this map here. So this didn't end up being a 2v1 against the blue player here because the yellow player decided to go into air rather than anything else. But now these bombers are terrorizing the blue team and getting a massive value out here, as they've already shut down a lot of wind production, turning off those solars as well by scuffing them up. There's a bunch of wind turbines over here that I'm sure are going to be a prime target for these bombers. Nice little bit of bombing right there. Spreading them out too, making sure that the bombs get a effective area. Always very nice to see. Now, it is nicely done with these wind turbines here. You can see that they're spread out in such a way that they are not going to chain react with each other. So a few of them still manage to survive despite the terrible bombing. Well, despite the good bombing, I should say. It's terrible for the green player, but it is rather high quality bombing. Adumas actually managing to flank around and find the commander exposed here. Is he going to be able to get the kill? He might. Yeah, those pawns are pretty damaging. Ooh, 4% left on that commander. Gonna have to pull off the front line, otherwise he's just going to be in a really, really risky position here. Couple more pawns, and I think we secure the kill on that commander, and that could be what you need in order to turn this entire battle against you. Well, against them. Getting stumbled on my words here. Haven't had enough coffee, it seems. Super, super excited. There's going to be some real big news coming out soon, so stay tuned for that shortly. We'll have a community post for that. Also, we're almost at 3,000 subscribers. Can you believe that? This was the channel that I thought was going to be, you know, was going to linger around 500 subscribers, and that was kind of going to be its maximum volume. I'm just I'm flabbergasted every day, and I just am so happy of this community we've got here. Anyways, before I get too sentimental, start crying here. Smidge is in quite a predicament. There's some vehicle labs that were built on the front lines here, but they are not going to be in range. Oh, D-gun. Oh, we missed the D-gun opportunity, so a lot of those tanks are going to continue ravaging in the back line. I really think Smidge might have been able to pull off a fantabulous D-gun right there, managing to cleave through that mess of tanks and bring it down a little bit. Pounder, not bad. Certainly, at least against grouped up tanks, but that is quite a lot of them. So they managed to burst down those Pounder tanks pretty quickly. Now, Shurikens, on the other hand, are going to be an excellent option here. Just a couple of them is all it takes to turn the tides of this engagement here. We did have missile trucks, did we not? Yeah, we do. We'd love to see these missile trucks moved forward to shut down those Shuriken. Not a bad choice whatsoever. The Shuriken are a band-aid, right? They're kind of a poor way to solve a vast range of problems. They do a decent job of solving a lot of problems, but not a perfect job of solving any one problem. They're kind of a jack of all trades, if you will. They can make these tank pushes a lot more bearable, though, because you can slow them down and the tanks get really distracted. They clump up. It turns into a mess, and that can eventually lead to a victory here. Gauntlet was built up on the high ground here. That's quite nice. Let me see if I can remember the key combination. There we go. Flip the camera around there so we can actually see this from the other angle, and you can see that this Gauntlet is firing away from the other side and doing a decent job of whittling down these static defenses, actually. Yeah, that's quite nice. Cobram has gone for a very far forward T2 laboratory. I wonder what the purpose of that is. Don't see why we wouldn't just build it back here, but yeah, I guess going for the T2 far forward is going to mean that those T2 units hit the battlefield a whole lot quicker. Struggling on metal right now, though. You know where there's a lot of metal? All these Centurion. 2,700 Centurion. I would not be afraid to reclaim at least a couple of these bad boys. Yeah, that's a lot of metal tied up in T1 units, and if you're already going into T2, there's no reason you shouldn't turn that metal into juicy hounds or gunslingers or any of those really economic T2 units. Interestingly, we have gone for a little bit of static defense over here. Blue player has done a fantabulous job of holding on to this area. Should I stop saying that word? Are you guys getting sick of that word, fantabulous? He's done a fabulous job of holding on to this area. Tons of light laser towers, tons of anti-air towers, all that good stuff. And this is maybe a better perspective of how important this high ground is. You can see just how much range you have when you have control over this high ground here. The blue team, oh sorry, the metal selection is going to be upside down. That's yeah, not programmed for turning the camera upside down. The Will Ferrell song was playing in my head there for a second. Had to compose my thoughts. Another big medium tank push here. They, yeah, I mean, they're taking a decent trade. Medium tanks for medium tanks, but if you have more production, then no reason not to trade out your tanks for their tanks if it's going to mean that you spiral a little bit quicker and they spiral a little bit slower. Don't hate that whatsoever. Do we have a T2 transition is really what I'm looking for here. No T2s over here. Oh, we are thinking about it. Okay. We're having a hard time, but we are thinking about it. Yeah. These guys can make the T2 as well, so you could just use one of these. Anyways, eventually the lab will start up. All that metal goes into the lab almost immediately. Going to funnel tons and tons of resources into making that T2 lab. That's going to be really, really nice. And eventually, we're going to have a T2 advantage here. But for the time being, it seems like the only T2 advantage that we have, the only tech advantage out and about for the time being, is going to be for the purple player who already has that T2 lab up. Starting to use this T2 constructor to build a whole bunch of metal extractors. That's quite nice. Really, I think he needs to apply a whole lot more pressure here to the orange player, though, because if he does, that's going to mean that the orange player has to retreat off this front line. So front lines, which has already been broken here, as you can see. Now Adumas does not really have a great way of reinforcing. His commander is sort of stuck up here on this plateau. Let me switch back around to the other camera angle. There we go. Yeah, this is a really, really messy fight. Now there's a bunch of pawns running forward, and there's not a great defense for them. I guess light laser towers are in place. Are these spaced out enough? Yeah, I think they are. I think those are spaced out just enough that they won't chain react when these pawns start laying into them. Won't matter, though, as a couple of auxiliary missile trucks do manage to hold on. Whoa, a couple of bulls were produced, and while nobody was looking, those bulls swept through the bottom of the map here and tore down all of this T1 light defense like it was nothing. Very, very nicely done right there. Looks like it missed a T2 transition over on the southern side of the map here. McCaslin has already gone all the way up to T2, and hopefully is getting T2 out to his teammates. Looks like some of the folks around here have asked for T2 constructors. I would love to see some T2 handed out in between all of the other players here. McCaslin has very little energy production. We are running off of 2 solar panels, a wind turbine, and 2 T1 solar panels. That is a measly energy production for T2. I'm surprised that we're that low at the moment here. Blue player is kind of AFK in the pond here. I think we should probably be stepping forward, trying to capture these metal extractors, fold them back into our economy here. Adumas is now in such a strange position, right? Really, really odd spot here. Commander is trapped. There's not really a way for him to reinforce. I suppose he could go for a laboratory on the high ground, go for a bot or a vehicle lab or something like that, and start pumping out units up on this this medium high ground here. But yeah, very, very risky to go for that, of course. Instead, gonna just pump out units at the bot lab at home and hope that that is enough to keep him safe. Really wondering why no pressure is being applied over here to Servitor's front, and why Servitor isn't applying pressure either. We do have these gauntlets that were trying to whittle down some of the static defense, but they've effectively hit their maximum range, and so for the time being, okay, so T2 units are coming out now, but it's a slow crawl here. Massive medium tank battles right here in the middle of the map. Very dangerous to park next to one of these Twilights. Of course, the enemy can't see that there's a Twilight there, but when it pops, it releases a massive EMP field, as you can see just there, and that EMP field can shut down even the hardiest of units. Oh, yeah, the pink tanks are gonna find it. Oh, they're actually gonna paralyze themselves. Oh no, that's a massive EMP. Stunned for about 13 seconds right there are all of these pink tanks. Oh, what is the blue player doing? Ray, you gotta move the tanks in. The tanks were not aware that those tanks were EMP'd. The blue tanks were not aware of the hot pink tanks being EMP'd, and so they didn't manage to get the trade that they probably should have. And all said and done, that EMP did not manage to get as much of a value out as it probably could have. What a bummer. That really was a that really could have been a turning point here. Could have shut down a whole lot of those tanks, as well as managing to managing to put a bunch of reclaim out on the wreckage field. Smidge is moving the commander back forward here. Looking for the opportunity to D-gun, probably. I like this construction turret that's up on the front here. Not sure who built this and when and why, but it is nice. It's going to start repairing all these units over here. Is it the most critical thing ever, and will it repair, you know, super quickly? No, probably not, but a little bit of repairing is better than your opponent's no repairing, right? These units aren't getting any healthier. These ones are just barely getting healthier, so I like that a little bit better. And it does fix them up a little bit, you know, not tremendously slow or anything. I actually quite like that. Now, I'd like some res bots here more than that. Yeah, res bots would be very, very powerful. Alligators going up against bulls. Yeah, the bulls are going to take that every day. The bulls are just too powerful, man. They sweep through whatever you throw at them. Alligators, medium tanks, you know, whatever it is. This is a genuine threat. Now there are some pop-up turrets that are being built over here, so that's quite nice. Going to, at the very least, make this ramp of attack very difficult to push up and into. That's a nice move right there, but it is costing ninjas quite a bit of resources just having to constantly try and defend that. So the blue player has continued pushing here with some torpedo launchers, making sure to try and lock down the hovering lanes, although those torpedo launchers can't fire at hovercraft. So more so just locking down the naval lanes, making sure no amphibious tanks roll their way through. But right now, it looks like it's going to be hovercraft here. We have a couple of skaters looking to get a trade, seekers rather, sorry, trying to get some sort of trade out, and I wouldn't mind seeing them go and start sniping all these torpedo launchers. No reason to keep those out on the field. McCaslin's commander has also moved forward here, claiming all these on-land metal extractors. Interesting to see. Do we have a constructor over here? It looks like we don't have a constructor for our blue player. I'd love to see one. Banishers inbound. Banishers are very, very powerful, but you have to be so careful. If they do friendly fire, they do a lot of friendly fire. They don't just do a little bit of friendly fire. They do as much friendly fire as possible. You gotta keep a close eye on them. They were a Cortex unit after all. Cortex not exactly known for its lack of friendly fire. Couple of pounders trying to break through this line here. There are some shell shockers. Looks like a Dumas did decide to go for a forward vehicle lab. That's really nice. Going to, at the very least, allow for some shell shockers to rain down. Wouldn't mind seeing them parked up here on this high ground. They could just easily, rain down on a lot of this static defense over here. Also, you can move them over here, although your team has already done a great job of capturing this Dumas, so maybe, yeah, just moving them over to a position where they can rain down. This is a good spot right here, yeah. Start to rain down on these agitators. Now, the agitator is shooting back upwards here, trying to fire back at them, but not doing a perfect job here, and I think it will eventually go down. Sure will. Nicely done here, managing to break some of the static defense, even if not getting a perfect trade over on the lower side of the map here. I think what he would stand to do is go for a tech transition back here, or maybe ask a teammate for a T2 constructor so that we can finally get these metal extractors up to T2, and then eventually we're going to be able to step our economy up to a point where we can produce enough in the back line here, or in the front line. I guess the front line has become the back line. Fat Boys have been produced, and they have easily destroyed the entire front lines here. There's not a lot left over here either, but the gauntlets rather are still firing away. Fat Boys are great, but you have to make sure you have some way to repair them. Either butlers or res bots are a great option too. We have a couple of snipers; those are also very excellent. I would love to see these move down here and start whittling away at units over here. There's no reason we shouldn't use this positional advantage to go for a little bit of a pincer maneuver. Send some units like that, cut off the orange supply lines, and then this quickly turns from a Dumas's commander being cut off to the red or the orange player, Daft Monks. I'm just going to call you Daft Punks. Daft Punk's commander being cut off here. As you can see, that establishing a single line of defense across here would mean that the orange commander is completely cut off from his team with no way to resupply, because his entire production base is vehicles, and they're gonna have a really hard time going up this ramp. Indeed, it looks like that's kind of the direction we're headed, and the sharpshooters are moving their way down the hill. Centurion for fire support is actually quite nice. I was talking about eating those up in the early game, but I don't mind whatsoever reusing them into the late game here as a sort of engagement unit, an armor unit, some way to add a little bit of health into this fight here. Tigers trying to get an engagement with these bulls. Typically, Tigers are not able to engage with bulls, at least not effectively, but up and down a hill like this, I think the Tigers are probably going to get a decent enough trade. Firing downhill is, of course, easier than firing uphill. That's why you can see these Tigers are actually being able to chase these bulls a little bit more effectively here. Oh, now they have to turn around, though, and that's going to completely reverse this as they're being chased uphill. Yeah, the bulls still don't want to engage, though. A lot of those are really low health. You don't want to lose those bulls. They're very, very expensive. Oh, we need to continue the aggression down here. I think we really could stand to move those snipers a little bit further forward. Just keep creeping them on forward. Use the Fat Boys as the armor. Use the sharpshooters as just massive damage. You're going to be in a really good spot. Do you have any pinpointers? That would be another excellent addition here. I don't see any currently. Let me take a look across the map here. I don't see any for either team, so I guess even footing in that sense. But yeah, I'd love to see a couple of pinpointers thrown down, especially if you're going to be using sharpshooters, because oftentimes they'll be firing into the fog of war, into that radar view, but not the line of sight view. Of course, if you can get some spy bots out, those are phenomenal. You can also use the sharpshooter sort of like a spy bot, just because they effectively can cloak themselves and work like a spy bot, but they are not radar protected, so they will still show a radar presence. This is quite nice. Admiral Roshan has actually managed to reclaim a whole lot of the metal that was left over here, those medium tanks left behind. Very, very tasty corpses, and eating those up has funded a full-blown tech transition. As you can see, the Banishers have now hit the field. It's kind of funny. We go from Janus trying, or the Armada players with the Janus trying to dip into combat, launch the rockets, and then pull back, to the Cortex players doing the exact same thing with the Banishers, trying to get them in range, fire on the heavy T2 units, and then pull them back. It's pretty funny little transition right there. Looks like the commander finally went down for Death Punk. Orange commander does eventually fall, and that is going to be the end of the orange aggression on this line. It's going to be a matter of attrition as these units fall, effectively just trying to stay alive, not so much getting any value out anymore. Very annoying, to say the very least, though. Yep, artillery pieces will fall. Wouldn't mind seeing these constructors fall. You can see this constant stream of scouting planes over here is quite nice. It is allowing a up-to-date vision over what is actually going on over here. Jammers are going to be shot down. The agitators, the heavy laser towers, basically everything, all spotted. Oh, the Fat Boy's getting an excellent trade right there. They are shooting each other in the toes a little bit, but that's fine. And all said and done, that was a really, really nice trade for the purple player. Again, though, we need to see some sort of repairing here. Excuse me. A couple of butlers would serve this Fat Boy army quite nicely. 2 or 3 of them can repair these guys up to full power in just a little bit of time here. There's a spy bot over here. That's quite nice. Giving a little bit of vision so that at the very least Servitor knows what he's pushing into. What a strange position for our blue hero here. Tucked away under the water, under the sea. Wonder what he will do about it. He does have a amphibious constructor, so he could move that out and try and get some proper light laser tower, some proper heavy laser tower defenses floating on the water here. Try and shut down any hovercraft. Bulls are sneaking on up the front lines here. Green Bulls have managed to jump on top of a lot of those Banishers, but they don't manage to get the kill. They are actually relatively tanky. You know, not as tanky as, well, a tank, but they certainly can do quite a lot of damage. McCaslin's commander in a little bit of trouble, as there are now counter Banishers from the blue player. Whoa, barely missing that commander here. Banishers, just like the Janus, capable of dismissing a commander with just a couple of hits from their missile launchers here, but the Bulls do manage to actually sweep through that entire engagement, and that is really, really nicely done. That's actually a tremendous benefit here for McCaslin, our tan player. Bombing run coming in here. They do find the fusion reactor, the sort of the eco-center heart of the red player, who has gone for a couple of pinpointers nicely. That is very cool to see. There are some T1 gunships that were also included in this mixture, so that's interesting to see. They're going to start whittling down whatever they can here. Not phenomenally well, but, you know, as well as they can. Servitor will cloak the commander so that he doesn't get sniped by a bunch of these gunships here, and the bombers are going to get to work trying to bomb away at whatever they can. Right now, it's going to be a bunch of windmills. I don't know if they know that there's a massive eco center in the back over here, but I think that would probably be a slightly juicier target. Fat Boy slowly marching forward. This spy is so close to being detected here. The Fat Boy takes 2 or 3 steps forward, he's going to be found. But for now, the spy is giving invaluable information. Immensely detailed information to the red player here. There it is. Will be detonated. Causes a little bit of friendly fire, but that's okay. Let me rotate the view here so we can see this a little more cleanly. Fat Boys firing away with their long-range snozzles, putting out a devastating amount of firepower in a huge AoE. They're the SAR equivalent for the Armada faction. Yeah, they dispense justice aplenty in a wide field of effect. Sharpshooters, of course, very good too, but they're a point defense, right, or a single target damage, right? fire on a single thing, and that's where all their damage goes. The Fat Boy is a little bit better at dispersing its Snozzle-based Justice in quite a larger area of effect. Sprinter's running forward. Not sure if that's exactly the engagement that I would want there. I'd probably appreciate maybe a Spybot to paralyze some of these and running in a welder or two. Gonna go for some of those rocket spiders. That's a very good idea on a map like this where you can climb them up the walls quite effectively here. But for now, they will be destroyed immediately. Yeah, those Fat Boys are quite oppressive to fight against. They feel invulnerable, and pushing into them is quite a task. A couple of Tigers managed to catch a few of them, but at great cost. You can see the corpses of the Tigers lying around over here. But yeah, the Fat Boys are now raining down on the base of Servitor, who calls GG. Meanwhile, the front line has been completely ravaged. Banishers have collapsed it entirely. Very, very powerful tanks, and when you get enough of them in numbers to just start one-shotting a lot of these vehicles, they're very difficult to deal with. Their missile has a little bit of heat seeking to it as well, so that's always nice. Gives it a slightly higher chance of firing into the enemy effectively. And you can see, especially when these tanks are grouped up like this, the slight amount of AoE that they have on their payload is definitely enough to cause an immense amount of pain to anything standing nearby the designated target. Very, very good. Northern section has been claimed, or well, the low, medium, and high ground have all been claimed. Yeah, very, very nice. Let me flip the camera around. There we go. Going to flip that around so you can see that the orange player has been repelled here. Forces are diverted towards the middle of the map, just hoping to break through once and for all, cause enough damage to force these units back. Interesting. Blue player has gone for a hovercraft lab, a floating hovercraft lab out here in the middle of the seas. Interesting. I am excited to see if that will pay off or not. I'm not sure if that's going to work. There's already quite a lot of static defense over here, but it's nothing that you couldn't break through with just a little bit of rocket hovercraft and tank hovercraft, which seem to be exactly what he's pumping out at the moment. 2 Aphises is nothing to scoff at. Certainly an economy worth putting to good work here. See tanks being produced here, T2 tanks, it's worth noting, being produced here and sent to the front lines to try and shut down all of this aggression. Couple of runaway Tiger tanks. Commander does get spotted and sniped down quickly. That was Rei Ayanami's commander. Gets banished. Banishers continuing to dispense a long-ranged justice across the battlefield here. Yeah, those missiles are getting so much value. What is the total kill count between all of these? 99 kills between 8 Banishers. That is immense. The award for most efficient trade is probably going to be going to these Banishers here from Admiral Rushin, because yeah, this is a massive amount of value that these guys are getting. Trying to count about what percentage it is off of a bull in order for those Banishers to fire rather. I think it was about 25%-ish, maybe 22%-ish. Pit bulls are built in order to stave off the aggression. Not bad. Snipers and Fat Boys here to do a little bit of auxiliary damage while these units are rolling on past. Don't mind that whatsoever, except that they're missing half the time. That's unfortunate. Bunch of medium tanks actually just make their way up into the red base here, shutting down a lot of that eco center, shutting down the pinpointers as well, making the entire red team just slightly less accurate when firing into the fog of war. Well, I guess going from 3 pinpointers to 0 pinpointers means they're way less accurate, actually. Finally enough shurikens here to actually completely shut down all of the tanks that are pushing in. Earlier we just saw a couple of them, but now there's more than enough to yeah, completely disable that tank push there. When do we pull the trigger on these tanks here? We've got some amphibious tanks also thinking about going in. Well, we've got a T2 naval lab that was also built right here that I guess the blue player just hasn't spotted yet. If we take a look, let's see what we actually can see over here. Yeah, he finally sees the T2 ship, but he hasn't seen the T2 lab. That's quite funny. Says, I wonder what this is. That happens to be, they must have a radar vision, but yeah. Radar vision, but no actual line of sight. Now the hovercraft are going to be shown, and I'm sure the red team will be put at ease to know that it's just a bunch of hovercraft, not a bunch of, I don't know, maybe T3 hover tanks or something like that were gathering in the storm. Just a whole bunch of these crocodiles, or caiman rather, that are, well, they're going to shut down this T2 naval lab, so that's quite nice. Effective enough trade. But yeah, pushing in against all this static defense that's completely walled off. I mean, they'll break the static defense eventually, but they're still walled off, so they're going to have to break through that, and T2 units are going to be more than happy to fire down at them on the meantime. See this bull getting an excellent little trade. Admiral Rushin even moving his commander into place to do a little bit of de-gunnery, try and clean up all of that. What a wacky game. Northern side is completely crumbled. We could absolutely see some units run past from this northern lane and down into the southern side of the red team here. I guess the middle and the southern side. Admiral Rushin getting some excellent D-guns here. Cleaving apart that army. Very nicely done. Accidentally kills the bull, but that's alright. At the end of the day, it was all about shutting down this hovercraft, and that was done phenomenally. Now it's time for the amphibious units to take their turn. The alligator is going to jump out of the water and try and bite, but I'm not sure if they're going to get much value out. That commander might just de-gun them down before they're able to get very much done. Fat Boys continuing to rain down over here with some of those sharpshooters. It's a very nice composition, those sharpshooters mixed with the Fat Boys. Fat Boys, of course, can just march forward and give the vision that the sharpshooters need, whereas the Fat Boys dispense the AoE that the sharpshooters lack. So it's actually a really, really powerful wombo combo. Commander manages to de-gun down 2 of those sharpshooters, but it will be blown apart by a Fat Boy firing not at it, but close enough. Forward T3 lab. Wow. All right. So we're going all the way up to T3 on the front lines here. The blue team does appear to have repelled the forces of the red. With Servitor effectively out of this game, at least for a little while, it is going to be difficult for the northern side to hold on here, and so a lot of forces are going to have to be sent, well, effectively all around here. Wow, looks like 2 commanders were actually killed by the amphibious forces. I'm surprised. I apologize for missing that, because that is frankly quite surprising. Looks like it's the signal that our blue hero needs in order to send his commander in. Try and go for the kill here. Man, despite the bull still being much better than the alligator, it is still massively impressive to me just how powerful the alligator is. The poison arrow is actually, it's almost like the Cortex equivalent to the bull. It's very, very heavy. It fires a massive projectile with a tremendous amount of AoE. Doesn't fire quite as often as the bull, but that's kind of on par for Cortex, right? Fire a big heavy shot, and that's your attack. It's not to say Armada doesn't have those units too. Showcased the 2 best examples right over here. Oh, Shuriken are brought over. Now that's a good idea. Shuriken can definitely shut down this entire push really effectively. Yep, yeah, they can paralyze those sharpshooters. They can paralyze those Fat Boys. And take those out of the game, and there's effectively nothing holding back this push. I would love to see some welders and some hounds mixed in, but you know what I'd love to see even more than that? Are some of those Webbers. They would be really nice on this map. I hadn't even thought about it until now, but you build some of these all-terrain EMP reclaiming spiders, just send out a swarm of them. You just route them in such a way that you get a big swarm like this. You set them on a fight command and route them in a swarm like this. They're going to devour everything in their path, and it's going to mean that you have a ton of metal going back into your bank account. And the excellent thing is that when one of them dies, the rest of them will just eat up the corpse. They're not too afraid about cannibalism whatsoever. It'd be really cool if the blue commander here would move forward and de-gun down these bulls, and then it would clear the path for his amphibious units. That'd be an excellent play right here. That's a lot of windmills real close together. Real worried about those chain reacting. It's also a miracle that this guy didn't trap himself in those wind turbines. We see that all the time. I do that all the time. It just happens. The way these are programmed, they're extremely prone to trapping themselves in big windmill farms. We're at sort of a stalemate. I think we're effectively waiting for this T3 lab to come up and online here. About 2/3 of the way done with that T3 lab. I think it's because we're focusing on such expensive units here without any reclaim effectively. If we were reclaiming off this front line, I feel like this T3 lab would be up and running in no time here. We do have some res bots. They're actually patching together an army. They're going to be resurrecting rather than reclaiming. I guess I don't mind that. That's always one option here. It's going to ease the burdens of production on your backline, but what are we going to do with it? Rei Ayanami does not appear to be building an economy at the moment. So I'm wondering what they are going to be doing. I would love to see them going into a fusion reactor, going into a couple of energy converters, making those stair steps all the way up to advanced fusion reactors. We do have aphises coming up and online for our blue player here, so you can see that that's quite nice. Maybe giving one of these fusion reactors over to one of the frontline players that needs energy pretty badly might not be a bad idea. But for the most part, I'm just happy to see that the blue player is using his metal effectively. Those bulls have been pulled away, and now's the time to strike. A couple of green bulls do actually manage to jump on top of the production centers here for the hot pink player Smidge, who is now facing a crisis at home. Tons of bulls in the back line, never where you want them. Not if they're the enemies anyways. Oh, these windmills are just perfect for chain reacting too. They're 3 wide instead of 2, so they will chain react if they get hit with just 1 or 2 stray projectiles. That's really scary to see. Bunch of medium tanks pushing forward of all things. Wondering where those came from. Wondering why those have come out at this point. That's a very satisfying lab setup right there. You got 2 sort of back to back. And now the bulls are jumping on top of the build power over here, the last remaining build power here for Smidge. The advanced solar panels are going to go down. The wind turbines, I have a feeling, are going to go down here very shortly, and you can see them chain reacting off of each other. You can actually see the chain reaction pattern happening here when they're exactly 3 across. You can see just how it happens. This one explodes, and then this one explodes, and then this one explodes, and this one exploding does enough damage to set this one off, and the cycle continues and repeats itself. Pop, 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 until they're all gone. Oh, energy converters pop, and they are right next to the fusion reactor, which means that the fusion reactor pops, and the fusion reactor was right next to another fusion reactor, which means that fusion reactor pops. That, alongside with these alligators popping up out of the water, very, very nicely done, going to mean that all of this will melt away instantaneously, as I do believe the blue team will seize victory here with a crushing push right through the middle of the map, and some snapping alligators popping at their ugly heads right out of the water. Nicely done here. Poison arrow also getting some value out here. Firing away at whatever it can. Trying to take down this heavy laser tower that's been whittling down these bulls. Not bad. Would love to see all this pop eventually. Oh, one more shot. There we go. All that will start chain reacting. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And that's going to be it. That's all of the vehicles. That's the power of the vehicles right there. The Cortex vehicle making an excellent showing here. The Banisher has never looked stronger than this matchup, that's for sure. Finally, T3 units are out, but it's a little bit too late. I mean, they'll be nice for cleaning all the rest of this up, but yeah, they were not decisive in this victory, and you can see the red team finally decides that they've had enough. They cave, and the blue team will be able to claim victory. We even saw some Shiva coming out here. Very nicely done. GG to all who were involved. What an excellent game. Really, really love these interesting ones, and especially love this map, despite how difficult it is to find the right camera angles. Anyways, thanks a ton for watching. Hope you enjoyed. This has been The Brightworks, and I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. I will see you in the very next video. Peace out.